It was supposed to be just a short getaway, a few days spent with a group of friends in a small, picturesque town in the Czech Republic. We had booked a hostel that seemed perfect online, affordable, well-reviewed, and conveniently located. The pictures showed a charming building with exposed brick walls, rustic wooden floors, and an overall cozy vibe. But when we arrived, the atmosphere felt off. We were greeted by the owner, an older man with a stern expression. His name was Victor, and he was a man of few words. He handed us the keys to our rooms and told us to enjoy our stay. The hostel was quiet, nearly empty, which was strange for a place in a popular tourist destination. The owner didn't seem concerned about that, though. In fact, he seemed content with the peace and quiet. After a long day of exploring, we made our way back to the hostel. It was late, and the building was eerily silent. We headed upstairs to the second floor where our rooms were. The wooden stairs creaked under our weight, and the dim lighting from the hallway made everything feel a bit more sinister than it should have. The rooms were simple but decent, with just enough space for the four of us. There was an odd smell lingering in the air. Something old, like musty paper and damp wood. But we didn't let it bother us. We were all just happy to be away from the city for a few days, away from the noise and the rush of everyday life. As we unpacked, my friend Sarah began to notice something strange. There was a small door at the end of the hallway, barely visible behind a faded curtain. It was locked, but she swore she could hear someone walking behind it, like footsteps dragging across the floor. "Sarah, did you hear that?" We all listened, but there was nothing. The house was still, the only sound being the occasional creak of the building. "I think you're just tired. It's probably just the building settling or something." But Sarah wasn't convinced. She kept staring at the door, and I could tell something was unsettling her. That night things only got worse. We were all lying in our beds when the first strange sound happened. At first it was faint, just a soft scratching noise, like something gently brushing against the walls. But it grew louder and more distinct, almost rhythmic. It was coming from the same direction as the strange door down the hall. "Mark, what the hell is that?" We all listened in silence, the scratching continuing, now followed by something that sounded like whispering. Not loud enough to make out any words, but close enough to make the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Suddenly the door at the end of the hall creaked open. I froze. My heart started pounding. The air felt thick, oppressive, as if the entire building had shifted somehow, like it was alive and watching us. "Sarah, did anyone open that door?" We all shook our heads. No one had. A cold breeze started to seep into the room. It was strange, because there was no draft anywhere and the windows were sealed shut. Mark got out of bed and, against my better judgment, walked toward the door. "Don't do it." But he ignored me, his curiosity getting the better of him. He crept down the hallway, the shadows swallowing him as he approached the door. The whispering grew louder, more frantic, as if urging him to come closer. Mark reached for the door handle, but the moment his hand touched it, the whispering stopped abruptly. He turned the knob and pushed it open. Behind the door was a small, dusty room. It was empty, except for an old wooden chest sitting in the center of the floor, covered in a thick layer of dust. The air in the room was thick with a stench of decay, and something about the room felt ancient, untouched by time. Before Mark could step inside, a voice echoed in the hallway. "Victor! Get out!" It was Victor, the hostel owner. He appeared at the top of the stairs, his face pale, his eyes wide with panic. "Victor, what are you doing? Get away from that door!" Mark quickly backed away, but Victor didn't move. He stood at the top of the stairs, staring down at us with a look of pure dread. "Victor, you shouldn't have opened that door. What's behind it?" Victor hesitated, looking down at the floor as if ashamed to speak. Finally, he sighed and motioned for us to come back to our rooms. "Victor, it's not safe here. You should leave, now." None of us questioned him. We quickly packed our things and left the hostel, not looking back. As we left, I noticed something strange. Victor wasn't following us. Instead, he was standing at the doorway watching us go. His face was unreadable, but There was something in his eyes, a look of resignation, like he had seen this happen before. We caught a bus to a different part of the town, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed us. The next morning we returned to the hostel, hoping to speak with Victor and understand what had happened. But when we arrived, the building was locked up tight, the lights were off, and there was no sign of Victor or anyone else. We knocked on the door several times, but no one answered. Eventually a neighbour came out of a nearby house and told us something that sent chills down our spines. A neighbour, that hostel's been closed for years. The last owner, he disappeared without a trace. People say the place is haunted. I wouldn't go near it if I were you. I asked her what she meant by haunted, and she simply nodded toward the door. Neighbour, that room, they say it holds something. Something that shouldn't be disturbed. I looked at my friends, and we all silently agreed. Whatever had happened the night before, whatever had been behind that door, was something we would never fully understand. We left the town that day, and none of us ever spoke of the hostel again. But sometimes, when I'm alone in the dark, I still hear that whispering. And I wonder if the thing behind that door is still waiting. End of story. This story is based on the experiences of travellers who stayed in old, mysterious buildings and hostels with questionable histories. Whether it's a true ghost story or the imagination of a tired traveller, it's up to you to decide.